everyone. So I wanted to do a bit of a reading challenge slash a themed 24-hour readathon, reading anticipated releases for a week or for 24 hours. So I thought I would do the timer method 24-hour readathon and just see how many I can read within 24 hours of reading. Usually when I do the timer method it takes me about a week, but we'll see how I go. I'll try to see how much I get done in 24 hours. So I thought I'd go through the books really quickly. There's actually two that I've started briefly already, so I think I'll start with these. So I have Funny Story by Emily Henry. I'm listening to this on Audible and I'm on chapter 9, so I think I'm nearing the quarter mark and I'm loving this. Like, I'm really liking it. The only other Emily Henry I've read is You and Me on Vacation, and I really liked that, but I think I'm already liking this a bit better. The story's very set up very well. So you have Daphne and Miles and they are roommates. Daphne has just been broken up with from her fiance. He's gone to his bachelor party and realised he's in love with one of his childhood best friends, Petra. And Petra breaks up with Miles. So Daphne and Miles end up coincidentally being housemates. They kind of band together to sabotage Peter and Petra's wedding. So it's really fun so far. I really like the banter and I really like the build up to the romance in this. It's very good. I like the characters. It's really fun to listen to because it's quite light-hearted as well. So really liking this. This will probably be my audiobook listen for this video. I also have My Throat an Open Grave, and this is by Tori Bovolino. This is actually a Labyrinth retelling. I've never seen that movie, so I don't quite know the story, but this is about a girl called Leah and she lives in this really rural town in Pennsylvania, and it's this very eerie town where the people believe there's a Lord of the Woods in the local woods and they believe he takes children, and I think Leah's baby brother goes missing and I think she has to go into the woods and confront the Lord of the Woods in order to find him. I've only read like a chapter so far and it's already set up really well. Like, it's very eerie already, but so far so good. I'm only a chapter in, but I am liking it. Really shouldn't take me too long. I read The Devil Makes Three, which is another book by this author, and I quite liked that book, but it was very mismarketed. It was marketed as a dark academia where it ended up being YA horror, where I think this one has been marketed correctly. Like, I know what I'm getting myself into with the YA horror with this one. We'll start with that. I also have all of these. I'm obviously not going to get through all of them, but I'll see how many of them I'll get through in this video. So the first one is Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. I love Leigh Bardugo. I love the Alex Stern series. I love the Grishaverse series, so I'm really expecting good things from Leigh Bardugo here. So this is a standalone and I think it's her first adult fantasy, I think, but the main character of this is Lucia. And I think this is set in the 1400s, like a really long time ago. But the premise of this is Lucia has powers and she's kind of the servant in a manor set in Spain, and her mistress uses Lucia and her powers basically to get some social standing and to get in with the royal family a little bit. This is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. I've never read Tessa Bailey before. I got this in my LitJoy crate, so I wouldn't mind getting to it. It's about Wells Whitaker. I think he's like this pro golfer. He's not doing so well, and I think he hires his #1 fan, Josephine. I think he entices her by agreeing that they'll split the prize money if he wins this next tournament, and I think she agrees. I think it's very tropey. I think it's like Grumpy Sunshine. It's like, I suppose, celebrity with a fan, co-worker. There's a few tropes in this. So I haven't heard anything about it, but I thought it would be fun, and I've never read a sports romance before, so that's a good one to get to. This is Evocation by S.D. Gibson. So she is the author of A Diary of Blood, which I really liked. I unfortunately didn't really like An Education in Malice. It was okay, but just wasn't for me. But this one does sound very good, and it's a series as well. So I'm looking forward to S.D. Gibson having time delving into a concept, because a lot of her books are very short, and I think she tries to do a lot in a short amount of pages, where I think it'd be cool. Kind of happy she's doing a series this time, so it might just go a bit more in depth. I think his name is David. I think it's a deal with the devil type situation. He's a high-flying attorney, but he's also a psychic in this secret society. I think he's bargained for success, but the bargain is being called in, and he needs the help of his ex-boyfriend and his wife in order to get out of it. I think it sounds fun. It's absolutely beautiful, so I hope I like it. I'm unsure how I'm going to feel because I loved Diary of Blood, didn't quite like Education and Malice, so this could be up in the air for me, but still excited to see what SD Gibson does with his series. This came out back in January, but I still just haven't got to it yet. So this is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. So he did The Silent Patient and The Maidens. This sounds really good. I think it's about this really recluse celebrity who takes a bunch of friends on a holiday in a Greek island, and there's a murder. And then apparently the writing style is like not journal entries, but more like a reporter reporting on the case or something. Like, I think it's written in terms of someone reflecting back. So I heard that that's really cool. So if I want a thriller, this would be a good one. And then of course, I'm so late to the party here, but I have House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas. So I read the first two Crescent City books at the end of 2023 and the beginning of this year in anticipation of this coming, but I didn't actually pick it up. I'm really excited to, though. I've really enjoyed the first two Crescent City books, and definitely with the way Sky and Breath ended, I'm just excited to see what happens in this one. I definitely caught my reaction of the end of Sky and Breath in a video, but I couldn't tell you which video it was. I'll try and find it and link it. If you're unaware of Crescent City, it's a urban fantasy book. So the first one is kind of a murder mystery story. The second one is kind of like political intrigue. There's this big myriad of characters. So the main character, Bryce, is half human, half fae. There's angels, there's mermaids, fauns, all that stuff. There's a slow burn romance in it as well. Really good, enjoyable characters as well. So I've been really, really loving this. Maybe I'll get to some of this in this video, I don't know, but we shall see. But yeah, I'm definitely going to start off with these two, probably this one this evening. And if I'm going to listen to an audiobook, I'll keep going with this. So I thought I would do a little check-in. I hit the 5-hour mark, so I'm down to like 19 hours, nearly a quarter of the way through. It's also my day off today, so I kind of hope I'll get a good bit done today. But in terms of what I've read so far, I only did another chapter, A Funny Story. Still really loving this, and I actually think I'm going to do a lot of reading of this today because I want to do a lot of audiobook listening. Like, I think I'm going to go for a walk and maybe work on my reading journal and stuff, so I think I'm going to maybe primarily listen to this today. But not much to update, I just read another chapter. Really fun. I really like the build up to the romance of Miles and Daphne, so I'm really excited about it. Even though it's just friendship at this stage, I still really, really like it. Out of those 5 hours, like 4.5 of them were reading this, so I'm past the halfway point now. It's a shorter book, but I'm on page 160, so I think I've got about 90 pages left to go. I am loving this so much, to the point where I'm like, this might be 5 stars, and it might be. I'm gonna see how it ends. I'm loving it though. It's so good. Obviously I haven't finished it yet, so it's hard to recommend it yet, but I think if you're a fan of the Raven cycle, you might like this. Obviously this is a horror, where this is more of a YA fantasy, so this has definitely darker, eerie tones. There's a lot of mystical elements to this, a lot of mystery. You're not quite sure what Leah is experiencing. Like, she's experiencing a lot of things and you're like, what's real and what's not? It's very difficult to decide. I love the tonal shifts in this, when Leah is like enjoying herself versus when something kind of horrific happens. The tonal shift is so good. I really like Bovalino's writing style. This is just really beautiful. I think the story and the plotting is so good. I really can't predict what's going to happen. There's a lot of topics about this in regards to like religious trauma, being harsh on yourself and not forgiving yourself. I think these topics are being handled really well. I do think it's a little heavy-handed in places. Like, I think maybe some of the setups for the tone or some of the concepts are very much kind of in your face a little bit. I did notice the same thing with her other book, The Devil Makes Three. I think there were some themes that she wanted to be very clear. The writing style is still gorgeous, but yeah, basically Leah has to put a favor into the Lord of the Woods in order to get her brother back. We're kind of slowly getting Leah's feelings, her character development and stuff. I really like the characters in this. They're all like swarmed in mystery, so we really don't know people's intentions at all. But yeah, this is fantastic. But I do think today I'm going to keep going with this, just to have like a bit more of a audiobook day, maybe a bit more light-hearted. I'm really glad I'm reading these in tandem, because this is quite dark and eerie and then this is so light-hearted, so it is kind of nice having two very different books on the go. But yeah, I do think I'll focus on this one today. I've just gotten to 14.5 hours left. In my update yesterday, I said I was like, oh, I'm just gonna listen to Funny Story all day, and then I proceeded not to. I ended up reading this and finishing it. I think I had 90 or 100 pages to go, so I just kind of binged it all afternoon. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was an improvement in the author's writing since her first book, The Devil Makes Three. I think it lost a star for me. When I started this book, I was like, this is incredible. I think it's going to be 5 stars. It kind of lost it for me a little bit towards the middle and end though. I think just some of the revelations in this book weren't as exciting as I was expecting them to be, or maybe crazy out there as I was expecting them to be. It is definitely very heavy-handed in terms of its themes and the points the author is trying to make, the descriptions and that. Even though the writing is really beautiful and I really like it and it's a very unique plot, I just thought this book wasn't subtle at all. And I think I like a little bit of subtlety. I think I like things not being screamed at my face about certain themes. However, I did really like the themes of this book. You basically have Leah. She comes from a small town in Pennsylvania that's very religious, but it also has this like mythical fantasy element to it. The girls in this town, purity culture is very much forced on them and they're very much shamed for having sex or sexual desire in any way. Leah definitely grows from that within this book. Her little brother is taken by the Lord of the Woods and she has to basically go get him. It's kind of this tradition, would you say, or the done thing. If a baby or someone is taken by the Lord of the Woods, then the person whose fault it was has to go retrieve them, and it's basically a suicide mission. However, what Leah finds there is definitely not what she's expecting. And it is really atmospheric and beautiful. It's very tonally, very dark, but also very light. I think the author struggled a bit with the themes of dark and light a little bit. I liked the change, but I feel like it wasn't really consistent throughout the whole book. I liked that it shifted a bit, but I don't know if the execution was the best. Yeah, I really liked the themes, even though they were heavy-handed. I just think the revelations and stuff were just a little bit predictable. I think this could have been darker. I think I wanted it to be a little bit more crazy, a little bit darker. I was kind of expecting like cult stuff to happen maybe. There's things I was expecting that didn't happen that I was kind of expecting because I thought the book would be a little bit darker than it actually is. I liked the character development. I love Leah's friendship with her friend Jess. I love the dynamic she has with the Lord of the Wood. And the side characters are nice. The main strength of this book is a very unique plot and kind of the eeriness to it. But yeah, I just think the tonal shifts were a little bit all over the place and the themes a little bit too heavy-handed for my liking. But I still thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. There's some books that you can read for hours on end and you just don't feel like time is passing. That's how I felt reading this, so I would definitely recommend it if you like maybe darker tone YA fantasies. It is a horror, but I definitely wasn't scared at any point. It was just kind of eerie. It had some like maybe gory scenes in it. Definitely a lot of themes of men getting away with stuff that women can't get away with, forgiving yourself. It's like painful in places, but it was really good. So I really enjoyed reading it. In terms of funny story, I am past the halfway point now. I'm on chapter 14. We're just at the point where Daphne's meeting Miles's sister. Their feelings for each other is kind of being made more obvious. I really do, as I've said before, I really do like Daphne and Miles's dynamic. I really like the romantic tension. I like the very realistic chemistry that they have with each other. I love that they're very different, but they're both very thoughtful of each other. The premise of it so far is that Daphne is planning on leaving. She moved to this town for her ex-fiance and kind of fell into his family, his friends, his way of life, and doesn't really know the town for herself. So Miles is taking her out every weekend and showing her all the kind of fun things that they can do in the town to see if she'll like it herself. So it's just really fun. I love their kind of roommate friendship dynamic as well. Yeah, it's just very believable and nice. I think with Emily Henry, she can be a little bit, you know, it's a rom-com. It's a little bit cheesy in places, but I'm kind of expecting that anyway. But I'm really, really enjoying it. Is it like the best book I've ever read? No. But it's a good rom-com. I was going to pick out the next book. I do actually want to read Fangirl Down, but I think it'll be too much like Funny Story, so I don't think I'll go for this one. I might actually do something totally different and go for The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. So yeah, I probably will start this one today. As I mentioned before, this is about Lucia. I really don't know much about this. I think the plot is very vague. All I know is Lucia has powers that her mistress uses her to like scheme others because of her powers, or tries to use her for her social standing. I think there's a romance in this. I think there's something to do with royalty. I don't know. I don't even know when it's set. I don't really know much about it. All I know is I love Leigh Bardugo, so I think this will be my next read. I actually hit the 24-hour mark just yesterday, and I still have a bit to go in both books. So funny story, I'm very close to the end. I think audiobook wise I've only got like 2 hours left, and then with The Familiar as well I've got like I think 130ish 140 pages left, and this is a quick read, so I'm very close to finishing. Even though I ran out of the 24 hours, I'm just going to keep going, I think, and finish these off. So I might actually just talk about funny story first. 2 hours to go. I actually paused it. I think I was like doing some housework while I was listening to it, and I actually paused it on chapter 31, and it's kind of the start of the third act character dilemma, would you say? So I'm actually dying to keep listening to this to see what happens. I am really enjoying this. I think it's roughly like a 4-star read for me. There is something though about Emily Henry's characterization that I don't love. This is my second book of her. I've read People We Meet on Vacation as well, and I felt with that book too that the characters don't really feel very real. Even though I know Emily Henry is trying to give characters depth, it's not really like, here's their personality traits, this is what they look like, this is the issue they have. You know, it's kind of those 3 things and that's it. For all the characters, main characters and side characters, I just feel like it's very rom-com-y, and obviously these are rom-coms. I've definitely read romances where you believe the characters, you think they're very real. So yeah, I think I'm just trying to suspend my disbelief a little bit with Emily Henry books and just see them as rom-coms, see them as rom-com characters. But yeah, that is just kind of something I see in Emily Henry books, but I'm still very much enjoying this and enjoying the plot. I really do like Miles and Daphne's dynamic. I like that they're very different. I love that Miles is very caring towards her. I love that he's doing his best to help her and she's trying to help him. All the introductions of the side characters are really fun. And as a romance itself, I think it's just very enjoyable. For me, it's on par with People We Meet on Vacation, and I gave that 4 stars. I think it's roughly that for me too. But yeah, just something about Emily Henry's characters. Maybe not my favourite, but I think that's a me thing rather than an issue with the book. Very much looking forward to finding out what's going to happen the last 2 hours. I don't think I've updated this video about The Familiar yet. So I am, 230 pages in already. I have to say, rough start, but I'm enjoying it now, which is unfortunate. I had to get to page like 100 before I even started feeling a bit interested. I think the world building of this is a little bit weak. It is the Spanish Inquisition, and I think Bardugo wants you to know about the Spanish Inquisition before going into this book. A lot of the historical background is kind of thrown in here. I just don't know if it's done so well, because I didn't really know much. I know it was about like Catholicism basically taking over, stamping out other religions. That's the kind of basics that I knew. I think if you have some history knowledge of that period of time, you'll probably really enjoy this a lot. But I do think even if you're not knowledgeable about it, you probably should still, even from a book that is based on a period of time, you should probably get the world building still just from the author's writing. And I didn't quite feel that. So like when it does talk about the king or talk about some war or something, I'm like, I don't really know or care. That's a pity. I'm also finding that the fact that this is written in 3rd person really jarring. I really wish it was in 1st person and we were in Lucia's head or maybe if it was multiple BOV and we were in St. Angel's or Victoria, like all the different POVs. For example, like when two characters are having a conversation and like Lucia all of a sudden is angry. I'm like, why is she angry? I don't understand why she's angry. Where I think if it was in first person, you'd be in her head and you'd understand. So I think that's just like not gelling with me a little bit. Some of the sentences and how characters react feels a little bit random in places, which is strange for Bardugo because dialogue for her has always been like a big strong point. It still has those good things. It is still very well written. It is a very good story. I actually really like the romance in this. I think it's actually very well done. I like a slow book. This is quite slow, a little bit just too slow. I think Lucia and all her companions basically going to the Turnio has made the book really interesting. So I think the halfway point on, I've been enjoying way more. For me, it's sitting at a 3.5, which is unfortunate because this is Leigh Bardugo. She wrote my favorite book in the whole world, which is Six of Crows. I really liked Ninth House. I didn't read Hellbent yet, so I don't know about that. I've read all her Grishaverse books. So yeah, I'm just feeling like this is probably one of her weakest, which is unfortunate. I think if this was another author, I'd be more impressed. But the fact that it's her, you nearly expect perfection from her because she is such a good author. It's like slightly disappointed, but not very. I think I'm going to like round it down to a 3 or round it up to a 4 based on how this ends, because the first 100 pages really changed for me, so I'm just wondering what the last 100 will do for me as well. So I am really enjoying reading this. Like I am definitely finding myself getting lost in it and wanting to keep going, not wanting to put it down. So it is good in that way. Maybe just slightly disappointing in terms of her being one of my favourite authors, and very nitpicky things like the points of view and the writing style, and maybe the historical backdrop just maybe isn't in my realm of interest, maybe. So even though both these books have their flaws, I'm still very much enjoying both of them, and I can see them being like high 3-4 star reads for me. So yeah, looking forward to getting through these two. Hi everyone, so I thought I would wrap up this vlog here. I think I got clips of this, but Gavin from Gavin Reads It All, he did these all-day reading sprints last Sunday, so I ended up getting both the familiar and funny story done that day. It went on for like 12 hours. It was so much fun. I think it started at 12 p.m, ended around midnight. I think there was 6 sprints altogether, so it was a lot of reading. I obviously like didn't read all that time. I obviously had my meals and stuff, but it was such a motivator to get both of these done, so it was a lot of fun. I really love reading sprints. So yeah, I finished off the familiar. I ended up giving this 4. I think it's a high 3 for me, like 3.75. Still a really good book, but probably my least favourite Leigh Bardugo, unfortunately. I thought the ending of this was really strong, and for a book that's not very long, it did feel very slow at the first half of it. Once Lucia enters the tournament, things start getting a bit more interesting. I just think the world building in this book was a little bit weak. I think it relied on the reader knowing a lot of history about the Spanish Inquisition, which is a bit unfortunate, because when it mentioned kind of historical facts, it didn't really click with me. And when they threw in some names here and there, it didn't really click, or it didn't have the impact for me that I think the author wanted to do. I thought this was a vampire story. It's not. It's definitely not. It is immortal story, though, so kind of similar. The love story in this is really excellent. I think the ending of this is excellent. For such a slow book at the start, it was really entertaining towards the end. So I think if you're struggling kind of at the start of this book, definitely keep going with it. Give it a go, because you might be surprised and you might really like it. I don't mind slow books, I really don't. But yeah, just something about this book just didn't click with me. Again, as I mentioned, I think it's the third person narrative as well. I don't know why the third person just didn't click with me for this book. This just might be a me problem. you might not have any issues with this book at all. But yeah, just definitely the world building, definitely just the narration style wasn't quite for me. However, I did quite like the story, the tournament aspect, the character development, the romance in here, historical backdrop, the kind of magical realism. It was all really, really good. I did actually really enjoy reading this. It was easy to read, like it was easy to sit down and consume it. So yeah, I did find this very entertaining. Not my favourite Bardugo, unfortunately, though. I then finished Funny Story. I kind of listened to this on audiobook while I read it physically, so it was really immersive. I really like doing that every so often. This is a rom-com, you know, like it kind of has the third act miscommunications trope. However, I really liked how Daphne's story wrapped up. I really like how, even though it's a romance book, it's really about her and her life. So I did really like the character development in that way. Even though the romance is obviously the main focus of this book, it definitely wasn't everything, which I liked. It was like her friendships, it was her herself, it was what she wanted, it was about her family, and obviously the romance is the main focal point, but I just liked that there was other kind of big plot points in this book too. So a very strong book. I would be keen to read her others. I heard like Happy Place is really, really good. As I said before, I think Emily Henry's characters don't seem very real to me, and I think it's just because it is a rom-com. Obviously it's just not very realistic. And as I said before, I feel like the characters are like, okay, this is their personality, this is their quirks, and this is the trauma that they had. You know, there's kind of those three things. That's about it, really. So I felt the same with people we meet on vacation. So I don't feel Emily Henry's characterization is my favourite. It does serve the purpose for the type of books they are. But yeah, I really liked how this wrapped up. I gave it a 4-star. Again, it's probably more of a 3.75 for me, but I'm going to round it up to 4. Very strong, good rom-com romance book. The other book I read for this video was My Throat an Open Grave. This was probably my favourite. This was a definite 4. I would think I was just like slightly disappointed by the ending. I just love the tone of this book. It's very eerie, it's very mythical, there's an air mystery to it. Definitely a horror-esque book based on The Labyrinth apparently, but I've never seen The Labyrinth, can't really compare it. I think the ending though, I felt a bit like the author just wanted to make points, like political points. When a story and characters are used to just make a point, and a very obvious point at that. I felt the same with Babel with Arv Kwong. It always just lacks a bit of subtlety. It's not the best storytelling in my eyes. I would love like just a character story or just a good plot with those elements in there, but when I think an author is like trying to scream points at you, when a book loses its subtlety, I think I just don't like it as much sometimes. I kind of thought this would be a 5-star read and it ended up not being, so that's unfortunate. These all were like really excellent books. They're all from authors that I've already read from before and I was anticipating them. So I kind of had high expectations going into them and they definitely delivered, so I'm really happy with these 3 I read. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, I do anything book related on this channel, so reading vlogs like this one, TBR videos, wrap-ups, all that stuff. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.